At the inauguration of the temple, Solomon called the temple the house for the name of Jehovah, the God of Israel. And he prayed that that temple would be visited by people from all over the earth, people who wanted to come and worship Jehovah because of what they heard about Jehovah, what they heard about the temple, and what they heard about other people who worshiped Jehovah. He said in his prayer at 1 Kings 8:43, "So that all the peoples of the earth may know your name and fear you, as your people Israel do, and may know that your name has been called on this house that I have built." So the temple, right from its very construction, was tied to Jehovah's name. It was also tied to the reputation of the people that worshiped at the temple. More than 5 centuries after it was built, Jehovah sent Jeremiah there to give a message in Jeremiah chapter 7. And we'll consider a few verses from this chapter, but the first one is Jeremiah chapter 7 and verse 4. "Do not put your trust in deceptive words and say, 'This is the temple of Jehovah, the temple of Jehovah, the temple of Jehovah.'" It sounds a little nonsensical. But really, many Judeans, they believed that the temple of Jehovah would protect them, that the temple was like some sort of beacon that would keep the city of Jerusalem safe, a talisman or a good luck charm. Why did they feel that way? Well, the temple had been there for nearly 500 years. Can you think of a building you've seen anywhere in the United States that's that old? They're out there, but not very many. Can you imagine how it made them feel? This building has been here for generation after generation. There's been many bad kings and good kings, many good times and dark times in the history of Jerusalem. But the temple is still here. Jehovah has never allowed it to be destroyed. 60 years before their time, in Hezekiah's day, the Assyrian army came through and destroyed city after city in the surrounding nations. When they got to Jerusalem, what happened? They weren't even allowed to fire an arrow at the city. The city was miraculously defended. So we can see how maybe some in the city would have felt they had reason to believe what they did, that they were safe. Notice how Jehovah goes on through Jeremiah in verses 8 through 10. "But you are putting your trust in deceptive words. It will bring absolutely no benefit. Can you steal, murder, commit adultery, swear falsely, make sacrifices to Baal, and follow after gods you had not known? And then come and stand before me in this house that bears my name and say, 'We will be saved,' despite your doing all these detestable things?" As Jehovah instructed Jeremiah to say, that really was deceptive reasoning. Well, they continued to come to the temple to worship. What were they doing when they weren't at the temple? Verse 9 says, they were stealing, murdering, committing adultery, worshiping other gods. Judah's worship had sunk so low in Jehovah's eyes that he then raised the devastating question in verse 11. "Has this house that bears my name become a cave of robbers in your eyes? Here I have seen it for myself, declares Jehovah." Well, as we read at the outset, the temple, and by extension all of Jerusalem, were a place that Jehovah wanted his name, his reputation, to be known at and known by. And his name is sacred and holy, so he wanted honor to be brought to it by the worship that was conducted at the temple. And as our reference in the workbook shows, what was done at that temple or in that city, for good or bad, inevitably affected Jehovah's name. So what these people were doing at the temple, but also when not at the temple, affected Jehovah's name. Their actions really showed enormous contempt or disregard for Jehovah's temple. While they conducted these acts outside of the temple, they still somehow believed that no matter what, Jehovah would not let that temple be destroyed because his name was tied to it. But they overlooked the fact that they too were associated with his name. So the point, the actions of individual worshipers of Jehovah, for good or bad, affect Jehovah's reputation, bringing him honor or dishonor. So if they did not reform their actions or adjust their course, what would happen? Notice how the account goes on, the message from Jehovah that Jeremiah shared, starting in verse 12 and going to verse 14. "However, go now to my place in Shiloh, where I first caused my name to reside, and see what I did to it because of the badness of my people Israel. But you kept doing all these things, declares Jehovah, and even though I spoke to you again and again, you did not listen. I kept calling you, but you would not answer. So I will do to the house that bears my name, in which you are trusting, and to this place that I gave to you and your forefathers, just as I did to Shiloh. Well, Shiloh was a place where the tabernacle and the Ark of Jehovah's covenant were set up for many years, in particular during the time of the judges. And during that time, at one point, the nation of Israel, like was mentioned, they weren't worshiping Jehovah properly. The badness of my people Israel, it said in verse 12. Yet they still believed that the ark and the tabernacle would somehow protect them. So when they were going out to fight against the army of the Philistines, they brought the ark of the covenant out from the tabernacle out to the battlefield with them, saying, since we have this with us, and Jehovah's name is upon it, we're going to win. Did it work? No, the ark was captured, the army was defeated, and Jehovah never again allowed his name to be called on that city of Shiloh. And then he says in verse 14, that's the pattern. The same thing would happen with Jerusalem. He wouldn't magically protect the city just because his name was associated with it. He would allow it to be defeated and no longer associate his name with the city if the people maintained their actions. A very powerful lesson. So how does this connect to our day? Well, our meeting workbook has a very simple question. Ask yourself, does my conduct reflect well on Jehovah at all times? And the picture helps us see just how deeply we might have to look in our actions to answer that question. In the image we see on the right side, our very tall, strong brother. When he's at the Kingdom Hall, he's a pretty nice guy. He's kind, he's gracious, he greets those that come in. He's probably like that in many ways outside of the Kingdom Hall too. But what about at work? What if you do that one thing he doesn't like? It's a very different reaction. That poor coworker of his is scared for his life. It's easy to see that his workplace meltdown, it's not going to bring honor to Jehovah's name, is it? It's not going to leave that young man he's confronting thinking, I want to enjoy life forever. He's worried that his life might end right then. So the point, right? The actions of individual worshipers, for good or bad, affect Jehovah's reputation, bringing him honor or dishonor. And like Solomon prayed in regard to the temple, we hope that our actions and our conduct, especially because Jehovah's name is associated with us, make people want to get to know Jehovah. It's easy to see when we consider that question why it's so valuable to look at all the things that we do and confirm that in every area of life, we're bringing honor to Jehovah because we highly regard the privilege of being associated with his name. So it's an opportunity for us, whether we're eating or drinking or doing anything else, to do all things for God's glory, because we know our conduct can draw people to want to serve Jehovah and choose to worship him alongside us.